Here's an even longer and more detailed version of your text, expanded for greater context and clarity. In a revelation that reads like a Netflix expo.
I don't know, maybe in another 10 years we can talk about it and I really understand what I was doing. I'm just living in it. I'm literally, kind of being as open as I possibly can to new ideas and how things are done versus how things were done. And I'm trying not to be a person who's so conditioned to my past that I'm not considerate of how things have to be done and are inevitably being done. Mystique is something that is good and bad. Because what I do struggle with now is the fact that I don't feel comfortable doing these kinds of interviews and talking because I don't really know the nature of where it's going to go. But I fuck with you. So I was like, I'm going to come sit down with you and we're going to have a real conversation. And I'm also, too, going to hopefully, be comfortable enough to be able to be vulnerable and talk about life. And, there's what you see and then there's who I am. And there's, some judgment that comes with that on the other side. But I don't really get concerned about that. I really am. I'm living my life and I'm trying to be a great artist, but greater than that, a good person and a human, right? I'm going to go through flaws, go through ups and downs. And my entire career has, kind of shown you that. Mm-hmm. Whether I was talking about it in music or just living through things. I've had some really, really tough times and I've not had anybody to talk to about it. I've not had the opportunity to be able to kind of open up. That's why I really was so excited about this Audibles, because it gave me the opportunity to be able to kind of peel the veil back and allow you to look at where I was mentally.
Usher has finally exposed some dark secrets linking Diddy, Holmes, and Justin Bieber. Secrets that have long been whispered about but never fully addressed. The singer, whose career has spanned decades, has always remained relatively private about the deeper aspects of his life. But now it seems he's ready to open up. Usher admits that there are still many things he doesn't fully understand about his past and the choices he made. But he's hopeful that, with time, the truth will become clearer. I don't know, maybe in another 10 years we can talk about it, and I'll really understand what I was doing back then, Usher shared, his tone reflective and thoughtful. But right now I'm just living in it.
Reed reportedly considered dropping Usher from his label, but when Usher begged him to stay on, Reed sent him to live with Sean Combs in New York for a year to train. And at the time, Combs, who was then known as Puff Daddy, we believe was in his 20s, there were these apparent training sessions. And these training sessions were known as Puffy Flavor Camp. Now, through the years, Usher has spoken about this time in his life with Combs. For example, in 2004, Usher told Rolling Stone that Combs introduced him to essentially sex. He said, quote, "Sex is so hot in the industry, man. There was always girls around. You'd open a door and see somebody doing it or several people in a room having an orgy. You never knew what was going to happen." On the Howard Stern Show in 2016, Usher talked about his time with Combs too, saying there was definitely a lot of wild partying, but he doesn't think he was really able to understand what all was going on. And when Howard Stern asked him, would you send your own kids to something like Puffy Flavor Camp, this is what he had to say.
What a life.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
14 years old. You're a dad now. Would you ever send your kid to Puffy Camp?
Hell no.
See? Usher also spoke with People magazine back in February, saying some of the most valuable lessons I could ever learn as an entrepreneur were picked up when I spent that time in New York with him. This unwavering desire to create and make certain that your creative ideas are executed.
Now, Justin, like I just said, is in the headlines a bit. There's some people who are saying he's really having a tough time these days. He's having maybe even a breakdown. They see some different behavior from him. What do you say?
It's crazy the timing of all this because we've had these shows booked, for a couple of weeks for me to come on here and talk about Crescendo.
Yeah.
And, we couldn't predicted all this stuff that just happened in the media. So, I really don't know what to say.
Are you worried about him at all?
I think moms always worry about their children.
Any extra worry now that he's 19 and people are, he's kind of out of the nest a little bit? Any extra worry?
Letting go, it's difficult. So I think that there's always an element of extra worry from parents that when they have to sort of let go a little bit.
I mean, because the thing I always wonder about is like, when you're 19, does your mom supposed to still dictate your friends? Like, do you worry about who he hangs with? Do you like sort of say to him like, I don't want you hanging with this person or that person? You don't have to tell me who. I don't need to know who. I'm not going to pry too much. But unless you really want to tell me. But
yeah. No, I mean, I try. Of course I have talks with him. Of course I have conversations with him about all that kind of stuff. But, you know, as his mom, the rules have changed now that he's...
You're a little more hands-off?
19. Well, I wouldn't say that. I think it's just different.
Once a titan of the music business, Diddy built an empire that promised stardom and success, but concealed a dark undercurrent of abuse. Allegations have swirled for years, from claims of rape and sex trafficking to forced prostitution. And now new revelations force us to revisit his notorious past. Insiders recount a time when a young Bieber, barely 15, spent 48 wild hours at Diddy's mansion. This infamous period, once celebrated as a rite of passage, is now shrouded in accusations of exploitation and predatory behavior that no teenager should endure.
Remember, we are quickly approaching Combs' May 5th trial date, believe it or not. Unbelievable. I didn't think that was going to happen. And remember, this is a trial where he will face charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, transportation to engage in prostitution. That's an important charge we'll talk about in a minute. But in anticipation of that hearing Friday, here are some things that you should know, maybe what we can expect. We don't know for sure, but this is possible what is going to be addressed on Friday. Now, first up, we believe that Sean Combs is going to be officially arraigned on the second superseding indictment at this conference. Now, most likely he will be advised of his rights, the charges, most likely will enter a plea. And what is the most significant difference in this new indictment that was filed against him last week on March 6th is really one paragraph. I'm actually going to read you right now part of the government's letter to the court that was filed in conjunction with this superseding indictment, and it reads as follows. The S2 indictment contains no new charged offenses, but includes additional allegations related to the racketeering conspiracy charged in count 1. Specifically, the S2 indictment contains additional allegations as to the means and methods of the racketeering enterprise related to forced labor.
In the book, Porter allegedly recounts discovering and making copies of the sex tapes that Diddy made of himself having sex with young boys that he was managing, including an alleged tape involving an 18-year-old pop star who went on to become a household name. Porter alleges that when she discovered those videotapes of Sean and his sexual encounters in the bedroom in this vault, she made copies of them as protection for herself. Realized that this is a very dangerous situation. I'm going to make copies for protection for myself, and included it as a part of her plan to leave him. But the memoir says that when she watched back the tapes, she was so shocked because there were things, quote, some of the tapes had things I would have never expected. The gay parties are one thing, but the young boys, like the 2 hip hop stars formerly managed by Diddy and the then 18-year-old pop star, I would have never known. The book publisher is claiming that it was the friends that gave him this thumbnail, the friends that provided this memoir. The friends also provided copies of these alleged sex tapes so that he knew that it was legitimate. And the final entry of the memoir from Kim Porter, before she mysteriously got pneumonia and didn't survive it as a 47-year-old, is her dramatically telling her friends, quote, he got me, and then calling 911.
I'm literally trying to be as open as I possibly can to new ideas, new perspectives, and new ways of doing things, especially when compared to how things were done in the past. Usher's journey of self-discovery is something he's actively navigating, and he acknowledges the difficulty of changing long-held beliefs while still trying to stay true to who he is. I'm trying not to be a person who's so conditioned by my past that I'm unable to consider how things have to be done now, how they are inevitably being done in the present moment, he said. His words reflect a man in transition, grappling with the challenges of adapting to a rapidly changing world while trying to retain his authenticity and his core values. He went on to explain the tension between holding on to past.
So I heard it last night, and it was something about they say he was standing at a table. They say the shirt that he wore to the VMA say something about God is great, but in the video they got pictures of him standing in the background while a woman is being sexually pleased, but she under the influence, and it says white substance on her nose. You can clearly see that, And they saying in another video, they have him and an A-list, a young male, having sex. And it was an alleged allegations that it was being a tape was being shopped around with him and a young male. I'm not accusing nobody, but if you look at the way Justin Bieber look at Puffy, he hates that nigga. He hates that nigga. That man's face ain't just dropped soon as he wanted to go get a wife. That man's whole fucking face, that's some medical. That man young and healthy, man. But he know, he terrified. You remember when I said a lot of people happy you locked up right now, Puff? He's one of them. That's why I'm speaking. He's one of them. One of the people that you terrified who couldn't get from under your claws. That's why Puffy trying to help her get back out here. He know. These bitches want to see me fall. They want to see this. They been waiting on this. He know how many people been waiting on this. His kids know. They feeling it. Nobody calling. Nobody trying to, you know what I'm saying? Hey, well, all the people that was trying to be my friends.
So infatuated with a child that wasn't yours. Were you grooming that little boy? I don't even want to start those conversations because that's not your child. You know what I'm saying? And for you to keep him that close, it's like you kept him that close because he might got your secrets because he's not your child. So if he's not your child and you that type of person with that type of character, you don't mind actually doing it to him when he finally reaches a certain age because he's not yours. And you know in your mind he's not yours. And now you keep him real close to you. You make sure he don't go to his daddy. Why? You make sure he's separated with him and you provide him with everything he wants. Why? You got one of them little Michael Jackson secrets. He got one of them secrets that he can't tell nobody because his legacy, I mean, his manhood gonna be, and not only that, his brother no gonna look at him crazy. Only Puffy know, only God and Puffy.
About Quincy, right?
I don't know. All I'm gonna say is, I don't know.
I'll be sure, son.
All I'm gonna say is, who's infatuated with another man's son now, like that? Like you, that seemed like grooming to me. I got, oh, that's his daughter's brothers. Get the fuck out of here, huh? Plenty daughters got brothers.
Habits and embracing new ways of thinking. It's about striking a balance. I want to honor my history, but I can't let it prevent me from evolving. I can't allow myself to be so stuck in what I've always known that I'm not able to grow. There's a part of me that has to be open to new experiences, new ways of doing things, and sometimes that means challenging the status quo. Usher stressed that it's crucial to acknowledge that change is inevitable, and being resistant to it can limit one's ability to thrive in the long run. The singer also spoke about the idea of mystique, how it has played a part in his career and public image. Mystique.
Now, one person didn't know what the saddest thing in the world is what they did to Justin Bieber.
What was that?
That's sad.
What'd they do to him? Because there's a lot of speculation out there, but nobody. I mean, I've heard things, but what did they really do to him?
They had sex with him
when he was a kid.
I hate to say that. But I hate to say that because I really like Justin Bieber. I feel bad for Justin Bieber. And this wouldn't have happened if Justin Bieber came from a wealthy family. Justin Bieber pretty much came from a poor family, but the young man was so talented, and he could have been bigger than Michael Jackson. But the depression of the drugs and the stuff he allowed these grown men to do to this little boy is unhealthy and it's fucked up. No grown men supposed to be getting high and doing drugs and drinking with a kid.
Hey, Suge, you know, Justin Bieber has been getting this out in different ways. You know, you could see it in his music and just what he's been trying to say without saying it. So, I mean, I think everybody